Welcome to this webinar. My name is Patrick Reinmoeller. I'm a professor at IMD, and I am looking forward to this session on relevance strategy. I'm very happy to have the opportunity to be with Amin from Lausanne and Abdul from Nigeria today, and Murad from Azerbaijan, to talk with you about something that has occupied my mind for a while: relevance strategy. Bambidele, welcome to Uganda. Hafid, Jakarta. It's great to have people from Indonesia joining. Ernest from Amsterdam, Groeten naar Amsterdam. It's great to be with you. And to be sure and to make sure I'm not the only one who is thinking about relevance. The executives that we see coming through the campus, thousands in this autumn, are occupied with what has happened to them. How can they regain competitiveness? How can they return to what they're used to, winning? And so this is where I want to situate this brief webinar. Relevance strategy, how to create and rejuvenate what matters most. And I've prepared a couple of slides and a couple of questions for you, and I want you to engage with everyone participating, mainly through chats, but you also will be sent into a breakout later on if we have time. Good day, Ayman, to Duai. Let me just move ahead and share the first slide with you, which is I need to scare you a little bit. So this is the outline, and there's this woo-wee ghost, and this is kind of the introduction of this, and it is going to be about irrelevance. And then we'll check a little bit what the concept of relevance strategy could mean, how we regain relevance. And then we look at a couple of cases, and then I hope to engage with you in a Q&A, which I very much look forward to. So relevance strategy. Why are we talking about this? Who is here today? So we heard already from where you are. So Amsterdam, Dubai, Hong Kong, Brazil. So this is great. But please share with each other, so full transparency here, share with each other what your industry is that you're working in, and put in the chat the name of your company maybe, and the role that you play in that company. So are you in finance? Are you in marketing? Are you in logistics? So yes, dairy, marketing, Arla, yes, so that is dairy as well, manufacturing, biostove, cosmetics, medtech, legal, yes, this is coming all through, and you can all see this, who is on the webinar. This is great. Cybersecurity as well, insurance, software as a service, consulting, product marketing, defense, security. So allow me the frankness to say that you're from all over the place, not only geographically, but also professionally. So it's wonderful to see this wide range of industries and people with these different roles, founders, marketeers, financiers, technologists, leaders in strategy. So it's great that you have joined us, but it's also astonishing that you have all joined us, because relevance seems to be something that is on top of all your minds. And please, let's acknowledge that we have fintech experts from Malaysia, we have cash management working in aluminium, we have CFOs from real estate. So this is across the economies, across the world, which is, I think, a good start to think together about how we can rejuvenate what matters most. So why are you here? Now, you've told us where you are, you've told us what your role is, and in which industry you fulfill this role. But if you can put in a couple of keywords, what triggered you to push the send button on, yes, I want to be on that webinar with Patrick. So what is the keyword? What brought you here? Why is relevant to you? New modules of strategy. Okay, yes, long-term strategize. Old strategies don't work anymore. I love that. Share experiences, best practices with each other. Yes, open up your minds because you're curious and you want to refocus. Forecasting, backcasting, great. Make sense of strategy and change. Making sense of strategy and change, learning and evaluate. This is great. Update competence. I hope that this is happening, and I'm sure with this set of participants, it's going to happen. This is amazing. You have a wonderful range of reasons. Some are more externally orientated, some are more internally oriented, capability building, learning development. Yes, how to strategize on the go. This is something that, Tanya, you need to teach all of us on the go. Insights and inputs. Learn how to make strategy powerful. We feel that we do have a strategy, but it's impotent. It doesn't give us the advantage. It doesn't give us the win that we expected. Old strategies don't work anymore because there's so many changing dynamics in the landscape due to the pandemic. Yes, partly, but certainly accelerated by it. Strategy in a partnership, in an ecosystem. Yes, so it's no longer just about us and for ourselves getting things right. How to cope with a volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous environment. Absolutely. This is really good. Unlearning, I love that. Unlearning and relearning is critical to rejuvenate. In order to make space for something new, we often need to let go of something that we've come to like, that we've come to be accustomed to. And letting go of habits is probably the hardest thing. It's probably the hardest thing. Yes, Philip, retweaking, nudging the strategy into relevance again. This is absolutely rich. I really like that a lot. This is great. So let me move on from this, and I think this is absolutely fabulous. You should be able to download all of the chat if you have that functionality. If you don't, please be in touch and we'll send you this rich array of reasons why relevance strategy is relevant. Good. So let's talk a little bit about relevance and irrelevance. If you are in retail, what do you do when no one shows up? You have optimized the retail space. It's perfect. Okay, we can argue about this, but you've thought to optimize it, and the results were encouraging. You had an edge over the competition, but suddenly no one shows up. What do? Your retail outlet, the design, the outline of the store, the optimization of the routes and routes, and the positioning of the sales is irrelevant. No one sees it. You seek other challenges. Yes. So that's trying to find a solution to the problem of irrelevance. How can we regain irrelevance when we have a shoe store and no one shows up? How can we regain relevance when we have a school and no pupil shows up? How can we regain relevance if rethink the business model? Very, very good. So you have already some answers on how to regain relevance, but many don't. And if they don't, they go out of business. If they don't become relevant again, they go out of business. And we have seen this in the high streets in the UK, as you see in the picture there. The quest to maintain relevant, to attract footfall is hard, especially in COVID times. But even before, online commerce was becoming much more common to everyone. So they had a hard time. Let's look at the second case of irrelevance and see how they try to nudge towards relevance. So I alluded to this in January 2020 in many schools, also a business school like IMD. Suddenly it was becoming difficult to work with our customers. And we have started in the months since then, 18 months, to provide offerings that we hadn't offered in that format before. So trying to regain relevance by using another channel, an online channel, to host the OWP, Orchestrating Winning Performance, one of our flagship products, online. We have already hosted it online a couple of times. The next one is coming up in Dubai, virtually and face-to-face, mainly face-to-face. So this is an interesting development, maintaining relevant by changing the channels, and that is not new to you. But what is key is that the experience needs to be satisfying to an extent that customers stick with you and stay with you. Let's go on for some other examples. And here we are seeing, I just picked this up from Business of Fashion, redefining relevance at the Met Gala. The Met Gala is one of the major fashion events in New York, mainly sponsored by Vogue's legendary editor, Anna Wintour. And over the years, it has become a highlight in the fashion world. But how do you stay relevant in a business that is confronted with images such as these? So with a colleague we have been developing a series of case studies, and one of them was on a fast fashion company that is making furor right now. Shein is growing very quickly, and it's stealing other fast fashion retailers its lunch, because it doesn't have shops. It only delivers what you like. And when we discussed this case internally, there were quite some commotion about how sustainable fast fashion actually is. And yes, suddenly with Greta Thunberg and all the other things like floodings here and droughts there and fires all over the place, suddenly with COVID, people have become much more attuned to how important the natural environment and the social environment actually is for our lives, health, and livelihood. So suddenly fast fashion has lost much of its relevance for being some place to entertain yourself by paying a couple of bucks for the newest thing that you might wear once or twice. So suddenly fast fashion retailers such as Uniqlo have started to talk about lifewear, and they're pushing the basics that are less prone to be thrown out because they are no longer fashionable. So avoiding the glut of waste is something that is on top of minds in the fashion industry right now. So this is a very important way of solving this. Irrelevance. Have you seen anything more beautiful like this? It's an engine. It's an internal combustion engine. And as beautiful as this thing is, Daimler has just announced a couple of months ago that they stopped the development of combustion engines. let this drop. Daimler has announced that it will stop further developments of internal combustion engines. That is an announcement like Nike stopping the development of running shoes. This is what made the company great, and they stopped developing in a set of technologies that have made them where they are. So that is a massive step for them. But the industry seems to be rapidly shifting to e-engines, electric motors. And so we see that Tesla's Model 3 right now, according to Forbes, has already joined the top 20 most sold car models on the planet. And that's astonishing. That's astonishing. So even if you are outstanding at delivering fast fashion, you have a massive competitive advantage. Suddenly something happens that may hurt, not your competitiveness in what you are doing, but the relevance of exactly what you are doing. And combustion engines, you may have outstanding engines. You may have engines that beat the engines of all competitors, but you may just have the kind of an engine that loses its relevance. And regaining relevance is then on top of the agenda. And I think that talking about sustainability, at IMD, we hold this dear. If people start thinking that responsible consumption and production are something that they'd like to see more from the shops and manufacturers and the services that they consume, then you need to gain relevance with respect to possibly all 17 of those. So the world is shifting, and as it shifts, it does something to our strategies. The old strategies may still deliver the results. You are first in doing something. But these changes may change the context. And therefore, being first in something may become irrelevant. And so relevance is, I think, the key topic that will occupy us for quite some time. And before I go into what I think we can assume to be relevant strategy, I encourage you to share a little bit of where you see your industry and company on the scale of extremely relevant or extremely irrelevant. And if you could provide a reason, that would be absolutely fantastic. So throw it in the chat. Do you see yourself more on the relevant side, or are you in danger of becoming irrelevant? And what is the driver behind this? Assisting companies to, yes, Leon, that's very, very good. Danger of becoming irrelevant. All right. Are you the only courageous people who share what? Yes, very good. Auto catalyst, yes. Janet, thank you very much. Extremely relevant. Providing natural, healthy food, yes. We are still relevant, but I think, yes, this is, many of us feel that the ground is shifting and we are still selling because what we do is still good, but we see that the ground is shifting, and the other side makes us look very, very different from the successful firm. Leadership shifting, very relevant right now. Okay. Irrelevance, sustainability, dairy, yes, interesting. Just this morning here in Switzerland, on the way to the office, I saw a poster saying milk can help you recover faster after sport. So a very interesting way of framing dairy, as we still support on poverty, quality, and education. Yes. Bamidele, yes, you're supporting poverty, quality of education. That's relevant. IoT, home automation, very relevant and trendy. Yes, yes. That's an interesting comment, and trendy. So when you are relevant, you are usually not alone. So the good thing is that you are running with the winners and not sitting with the losers. So that is a comment on trendy. On trendy. Letje, hello to you in the Netherlands as well. So let's move on and explore a little bit what is the case here. I think strategy has a long history, and part of that history is bound up with the idea of competitive advantage. We need to do something for our customers that make them enjoy what they get, like what they get, love what they get. And we need to do this relative to competition. We need to do it better than they do, or try to do this. So this is an interesting point of departure for our quest to determine relevance. According to you, how would you describe competitive advantage? Your competitive advantage. What is it? How do you measure competitive advantage? Yes, this is an active chat session. Absolutely. How do you measure competitive advantage? What if a company doesn't have one? Very good question. That's great. Scale, costs, customer support, profitable growth while reducing waste, better quality and services, solve problems better and faster. Yes. Unique, unable to copy. Yes. High barriers. Yeah. Excellent. Keep it simple and smart. I like that. Staying ahead of the pack. So this is absolutely fascinating. Something unique, something that others cannot copy. Market share growth, open source software. I'm not sure, Richard, whether I understand this, whether you want to use it or whether you produce it. Value adding consulting. So you add value, you do something for the customers and wow them with this. But at the same time, as some mentioned, you do it faster without waste. And it's Ayodele, spot on. It needs to result in an outcome for the customer that they stay with you. Yes. Deanne, yes, you're focused on Instagram, having a lot of followers. Interesting to see the dynamics. More followers make you relevant for some, which may help you attract even more. Great. So this is interesting for several reasons. Every one of you has his or her own story to tell. And that is fantastic. And I wish we could share time and space together. Every one of you has a different way of defining competitive advantage and measuring competitive advantage. And that's kind of interesting. It's kind of interesting because when we look at it in the literature, we very often hear highest profit in the industry. So are you the top dog in the industry? And then, of course, the definition of the industry can be more to your favor or less to your favor. Above average profit in the industry. So if you want, then highest is here. Just a second. Highest will be here on top. Above average would be here, right? And then we have a positive economic profit. Well, as long as it is positive, that's good. And then we have a low-cost position, and some of you mentioned that in the chat. I can't find it right away, but some mentioned that having the low-cost position in an undifferentiated industry is the recipe to win. And then others said, many of you said, the difference between what we add to customers and the costs. And this gap is important. And fascinatingly, then there's a lot of talk about competitive advantage, meaning all of the above, as long as it is sustained. So as long as you can go on with this for a while. And so the definitions in the academic world are all over the place, like your definitions. And that is fascinating, but it also highlights the problem that we have with competitive advantage. So you may have the highest profit in the industry, but suddenly people realize that you are harming the environment. Or you may have above average profit in the industry and you may exploit your workers. So suddenly there may be another perspective that cuts the relevance of the competitive advantage. And I think that is really, really interesting. So I see great contributions here. Competitive advantage is something that makes you different in the market, that customers value, choose you, and stay with you. Yes, I agree. Customer-centric, valuable, blue ocean, innovative. Software programming for scalable applications, generating great user content and traffic. So this is very, very specific. And the VRIO framework, yes, that is valuable, rare, inimitable, and organizationally embedded for the aficionados. The willingness to pay. How much are customers willing to pay for your services or your products? That is very, very significant. But I also like those comments from you that say, the cost side is also important. If I deliver a very, very premium product and service to my customers, but I have such a cost structure that only leaves a very, very narrow margin, then I may not do much better than another company that is in a mass market with very, very low costs and selling to everyone at a very low margin. So very interesting comments that you have. You may have a competitive advantage, but not necessarily the highest profit. Now, see, this is interesting because some define competitive advantage as having the highest profits, and others, as you do, they say competitive advantage and highest profits are kind of different. And that opens up something that I like a lot, which is if you start thinking about social entrepreneurship, for example. These are entrepreneurs who start businesses that should generate some profit, but besides the profit orientation, they also have a social orientation. They go for a social impact. And when you have a social entrepreneur going after this, then they may say, as long as we have a massive social impact on reducing poverty or on increasing literacy, we are very, very much okay with having a very low profit or a limited profit. We are not in the business of maximizing profit. So very, very interesting comments that you're giving me here. Customer interacting with shops by reviews. Yes, very, very good. Recommendations, social media, absolutely. It's just getting more and more problematic to sorting all the dogs and the robots out who also post reviews and make recommendations. Now, I'm just throwing in something that is technologically wise becoming more important. Great, Harald, the comment on the more you have, the bigger you get. Interesting, very, very interesting. Yes, so there is a dynamic. And there is this positive feedback loop that it is sometimes hard to break in. But I want to move on with explaining and exploring relevance strategy. I think these comments that you shared with us clarify to some extent that the concept of strategy and competitive advantage, which is tightly related, is up for rethinking. You have told us at the start that the old strategies don't work anymore. And yes, this is what we feel as well. And we need to engage with this. These are definitions by the luminaries, but basically you have said this. You have said exactly what they say, value of a firm relative to cost. And we have actions create value, and few competing firms can do this. Interestingly, in a textbook, Salonen and others, they say, in order to create and capture value, the company must have a competitive advantage. And that is very close to what one of you has just said. You can have a competitive advantage, but not, yes, that was Patricia Araripe. You can have a competitive advantage, but you don't have the highest profits. And that's an interesting thing here. They separate these two as well. So you are totally in line with the scholars who have been studying this for years, which is a great result. What is tricky with competitiveness is you're optimizing, or you're trying to gain competitiveness in a certain setting. And when the times change, like with COVID, the economy comes down, then the old setting for which you have developed strong competitiveness is no longer there. So when you go down and prepare for the next start, starting again, restarting again, that is a very, very important way of thinking, especially in this pandemic. We don't really know what comes next. And preparing for the return to, or the journey to, a future that is very unlike the past is extremely challenging. So how do we prepare a strategy that ensures relevance in a future that we cannot predict? So at IMD, we work a lot with global signals and with scenarios. And I think that this is very, very important. I get more comments here. This is good that you engage. Agree that they don't have meaningful and relevant answers. Gaurav, you're being very, very tough with them, with those who define abstract definitions. Defining competitive advantage of states or community organizations. This is very, very important. And that ties back into one of your comments earlier on. When we think about collectives, when we orchestrate innovations in communities or across the boundaries of communities, then competitiveness has suddenly a very, very different meaning. Beating the pandemic certainly was not necessarily the feat of one or two organizations, but it was a lot of people who paid for this. So I think that's a very, very good point. Company value is a lag factor. Very, very nice. The company value is a lag factor. What usually is seen as value is the willingness to pay. Someone mentioned it. The willingness to pay is indicative of the value if you take away the cost that a company needs to shoulder in order to deliver that value. This is great. In case of having a competitive advantage without profit, something might be wrong with your cost or capital or pricing. Absolutely. There may be issues there. So you may have the best product, you may have the best device, you may have the best software, but it's just not going anywhere at the price that you need. Very, very good comments. This is great. So what I would like to do now is nurture, just reacting to the comments by Tanya, nurturing a workforce that is able to adapt to and make use of the change. This is a very profound remark. I think it's essentially an issue of coping with change, strategic change, and reorientation. And for that, people need to be aligned internally. Thank you for this. This is very, very good. So let me just move ahead. So profit is limited to the present, while the future, the value is an indicator of the future. Very, very good. Very, very good. These are the issues. And you can have a competitive advantage now, and you can be profitable now. But if you become irrelevant, this is all gone tomorrow. So that is the fundamental challenge that relevance strategy offers us in a way that is complementary to competitive advantage. If you are relevant and not competitive, you're going to lose against all the other firms who are also relevant. So competitiveness is not what is to be discarded. Not at all. We need to do our utmost best to generate the value at a very low price if we can. But we also need to stay relevant. And in order to do that, I think we need to consider what relevance is. And I have a couple of proposals to make. And then I want you to go into a breakout, if that is possible. And then we can also do this over chat. I like your positive spirit and proactiveness on this. Create positive feedbacks loop to stay relevant in the future. Yes. And how do we get these, Gaetano? This is really, really good. It's really, really good. So I think relevance is a quality that we have long overlooked. You know, many years ago, we were thinking in terms of taste and flavors as being salty, sugary, and so on. And then suddenly a new dimension of the depth of flavors, umami, was discovered. And we have conquered a new dimension of why we enjoy food so much, and some foods more than others. So same with relevance. I think it's a quality that many strategists miss, and many strategies miss. So what is that quality? It's the quality of being networked and embedded with stakeholders. It's the quality of being appropriate in the way you do things in relation to stakeholders, in the broader sense, but also in the specific sense of customer segments and target groups. And it is about creating value for stakeholders. So I think it's really important to understand that innovation and inspiration of stakeholders is what keeps them connected to us, what makes them feel they are part of our tribe, if you like, makes them feel that they are part of something bigger than themselves. And that is often very, very powerful. So when we design for such a distinctiveness, adding the quality or infusing the strategy and frankly, everything we do, as Tanya said, everything everyone in the organization does, if we infuse this with the quality of being distinctly relevant, then I think we are up to something. Let me summarize this briefly, and then I want your comments on this slide on relevance and this new dimension of quality. So I think relevance is about the connection, not losing the connection with those who matter. And these, I put now the abstract label, are the stakeholders. In your cases, these may be the suppliers. the supplier is going through a very hard time because of COVID or because of currency fluctuation. Are you disconnected or are you staying in touch? Are you making yourself useful? Are we conscious about what we do in terms of appropriate conduct in relation to the range of stakeholders that we have? What we intend to do or what we communicate may be more or less appropriate to one or the other stakeholder group. So when we stay connected, we cannot stay connected by sending one-off messages to all, but we need to be conscious about how to really create a meaningful relationship with the stakeholders. And then how do we contribute? So I gave this example of the supplier. Are we helping out in a moment of crisis? Do we contribute, or do we contribute to their disaster? Earlier last year, I wrote an article that was picked up by Forbes and others on a specific importance that resilience gives. If your company is resilient, one of the best things that you can do is share that resilience with others. So how do I come to this? Your supplier is having a hard time. Are you contributing to the misery by asking for a price rebate because of COVID and a pandemic? Or are you contributing by helping this supplier to stay in business and make it into next year? So this is what I mean with contribution. Are you a force for good or are you not? And then how conspicuous do you want to be doing this? How conspicuously do you want to stay relevant? And this is a bit of a disclaimer. Yes, we are all in the race for relevance. Everyone is in the ad industry, in the advertising industry, in the communication media, fast-moving consumer goods. We are all in the race for staying relevant. But we can also overdo it. Sometimes big corporates jump on every single issue that they can find in order to maintain relevance. Without seeing that they consciously or unconsciously undermine their credibility. So we need to consciously choose the way we stay connected through contributions to our stakeholders. And then we need to see whether we adjust the level of total anonymity to a level where we are more visible or where we are very, very visible. So this is my bit on relevance and the quality of being connected, conscious, contributing, and conspicuous. So Patricia, relevance requires constantly fostering outside-in perspectives. Spot on. And I love this so much because many of the companies that we work with are very successful. And some of them are also very large. And when they become large, the internal universe becomes preoccupying. Most of the time is spent with internal meetings. It's harder and harder to be in touch with a customer. Going and speaking to a customer is difficult. Why would this be difficult? They are providing the financial input for the entire organization to continue doing what it does. So why could it be difficult to ask what a customer thinks about things? Or right now, I just finished with my colleague Mark Graven a session on our new open program, Asian Innovation Strategies, where we clearly need to address the issue of regulatory influences and politics as it is becoming more and more invasive in the way we do business. So yes, stakeholders and staying in touch with them. I mentioned customers, but the outside-in perspective is very, very important. I love this comment, Patricia. Bogdan, levers for relevance might be always innovative. Yes, and this is hard. This is really, really hard, because once you have had one big innovation, the temptation is to refine this and refine this and refine this and refine this. And these incremental innovations are very, very powerful, and we need to continue to do this, but we shouldn't forget the original or entrepreneurial spirit that some founder had when they started something that no one else has even been thinking of. So I think this is really, really important. Great. Recruiting. Rejuvenating, yes, absolutely, the pool of talent that you have. Redesigning the business model, yes, and in what way? And I suggest to connect better, to do this more consciously through contributions that stand out uniquely. I think contributing during disasters means being compassionate. Ayman, I also think so. There are numerous examples where large retail chains have supported local communities better than regional or federal governments in times of crisis. So in the US in the past, Hurricane Katrina, and in that period, Walmart was stepping in as a support infrastructure network. In Japan, the convenience store chains fulfill a similar infrastructure function to some extent, because their distribution network is super efficient. And look only at the pandemic. Without online deliveries, our lives would not have been as pleasant as they have been, at least for the fortunate amongst us. Very, very good comments. I like that a lot. It's changing of focus at this critical time. We stop doing combustion engine. We do something that we always despise. That is unbelievable. That is that takes an enormous amount of courage. Maybe I need to put another C into this little whimsical model here. It is a courageous decision to say we are no longer relevant with what made us great. We have to stop doing what made us great. We have to move on. And changing the focus, we had that. Relevance is the ability to continuously providing solutions to customer needs. And this is so critical, understanding the customer needs. And for this, digital technology is absolutely pivotal. If you are in contact with your customers through the mobile phone app, that is so much richer in terms of data that you have access to than what retailers had in the past. They had merely nothing that manufacturers had in the past. They merely had nothing. The question, though, is who has access to the data? So if you have no direct access to the data, then it potentially is dominated by or monopolized by one firm or few firms that have access to the data. That's one scenario. But the other scenario is because users use so many apps, user data is diffused around the world so that it is actually becoming a commodity. So hence this moniker, data is the new oil. And very, very nice. I like that. Yes, customer intimacy, this is, and being in tune with market trends are also levers. Yes. The question there is, customer intimacy, yes, this is absolutely fantastic. If you manage to be a customer-centric organization, then you have accomplished something that makes you competitive now for these customers. But what about the next generation of customers? I was on a webinar with a colleague of mine who was exploring the potential of digital technology in the luxury business, Stéphane Giraud. And the discussion was about a Tom Ford suit and a digital Tom Ford suit. So for many in the young generation, a suit has lost relevance. For them, having a digital Tom Ford suit that they could never try seems to be more relevant. So very nice. Philip, you get a lot of plaudits here. Yes. So Philip is getting a lot of support. Bogdan agrees with Philip's relevance is the ability to continuously providing solution to customer needs. This is very, very nice. So how to stay always innovative? I think Grazina gave you already the answer. And Amira, continuously learning and exploring. Learning to do the things you currently do better, but also exploring new ways of figuring out stuff, trying out stuff, because nothing is more effective than stumbling across the next big thing. And many great inventions were stumbled across, serendipity. So how to stay always innovative. Last true innovation in 2007. Ivan, you put Apple on the spot there. It's interesting to see that. And there we see that the flywheel of being big and having a lot of customers gives you a lot of momentum. But that momentum can slow down, as you alert us to. Very, very good. Anthony, you picked up on courage by leadership. Yes, saying for Netflix, we stopped sending and mailing our movies on CDs to our customers, and we moved to streaming was a hard call. And these hard calls are as hard as saying goodbye to the combustion engine or to synthetic fibers that do never decompose, but just fracture into microparticles that end up in all our bodies. So very, very good. Adapting to environmental change. Now, here's my final question to you. You have great comments. And Krishna is very strong, is in bold letters, block letters, technology. This is very, very nice. And this is good, but think of nuclear technology. So sometimes things happen that make industries questionable. I'm not saying it's irrelevant, but they put a hold on the development of technologies. Very good stuff. Now, here's the thing. How does relevance, the quality of being connected, conscious, contributing, and conspicuous, and also out of this session emerged courageous, how do these matter for your company? What can you do to become more relevant or stay relevant? Give it to me in the chat. Yeah, Krishna, absolutely. Amazon Go versus old stores. Totally. Learning and development. So you need to invest, Bogdan, I agree. Investment in learning and development are key, but I would say this, wouldn't I? Being agile, listen, and really listen and observe. So survey data and data points, masses of data are very, very hard to crunch. So listen to the real people who tell you what their pain points are, what their needs are. That is very, very good. I like that. So it's a set of capabilities, the capability of agile, embracing change, being able to continuously embrace change, and very much aligned with Krishna is faith. She emphasizes research, yes, and wouldn't I agree with this? being resilient and have a grip on leadership. Latif, yes, there are setbacks and we need to have the ability to bounce back. We need to be able to cope with this. And there are multiple levels to this. And our partnerships, our networks with the stakeholders, the connectedness with our stakeholders who help us out and we help them out, that is a very, very good recipe to stay resilient in an ecosystem context. Asking questions, I really love that. I really love that. But Tanya, when you ask questions, you're already framing, often you're framing things. So open questions is good. So where you don't give the implicit answer in the question. So open questions are good, closed questions are not so good because they only give you what you put in. And so they are much more a mirror than a device with which you can discover new things. Staying connected to, yes. All right. Make your daily struggle a driver for learning. I think this attentiveness to what has been going wrong, what is the issue here, the attentiveness to the things that get in our way every day, that is a good one. Big Yuha, love it. Very, very nice. We are selling solutions. Yes, this is very, very good. Picking up early signals. How do you do that? What do you have in place in your company? Do you have the systems, the processes in place to do this? More importantly, do you have a strategic vision for accomplishing this through a culture that is aligned with that vision? I think these are wonderful, wonderful comments that you share with each other. This is absolutely fantastic. Welcoming disruptive ideas. This is, most of the time you cannot fight it. And the disruptive ideas in the early days, disruption was always defined as a technological aspect or a disruptive technology. These days, we see disruptions resulting from many other factors, political factors, social factors, economic factors. And so disruption is clearly something important, but it originally is and mostly is seen as a technology issue. Thank you very much, Kitsisa. This is great. We are in Switzerland, and in Switzerland we have 1 minute left. So I thank you very, very much for all your engagement and these chats. I love what you have shared with each other, and I'll print this out on recycled paper and study these comments, and I'm sure I'm going to learn a whole lot from them even after this session. Thank you very, very much for being with me. Please stay in touch. Please visit us here at the IMD on some occasion. Thank you very much and have a great day. Thank you.